Tensions between Washington and Caracas have surged to their most volatile point in years as a series of dramatic revelations, high-level calls, military maneuvers, and political shifts across Latin America push the U.S.-Venezuela standoff into uncharted territory. The latest flashpoint emerged after reports that President Donald Trump delivered a blunt ultimatum to Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro during a phone call believed to have taken place on November 21st. Now, according to sources cited by the Miami Herald, President Trump told the Venezuelan leader to relinquish power immediately in exchange for safe passage for himself and close family members. Maduro allegedly refused and instead demanded global amnesty and the right to retain influence over Venezuela's armed forces, conditions Washington ultimately rejected. Well, President Trump later confirmed the call but gave no details, describing it simply as a phone call. Caracas, too, declined to elaborate, instead accusing the United States of intimidation through military pressure.
Times reported that you had a phone call with Maduro. Did you?
I don't want to comment on it. The answer is yes.
And can you tell us a little bit
No,
about
I can't
it?
do that.
Mr. President,
Would you say it went well?
No, I wouldn't say it went well or badly. It was a phone call.
Now, the call came amid a 4-month U.S. campaign marked by huge naval buildup in the Caribbean, the world's largest aircraft carrier station near Venezuelan waters, and repeated U.S. airstrikes on boats that Washington claims are linked to drug trafficking. At least 83 people have been killed in these operations, sparking outrage and calls for investigations within Venezuela's National Assembly. Now, despite the mounting pressure, Maduro has embraced a defiant posture. At rallies in Caracas, he's dismissed President Trump's approach as an attempt to impose a slave's peace and vowed absolute loyalty to the Venezuelan people.
Do have absolute certainty that, just as I swore before the body of our commander Hugo Chavez, before saying farewell to him, absolute loyalty at the cost of my own life and peace of mind, I swear to you absolute loyalty, even beyond the time in which we are able to live this beautiful and heroic history. Be sure that I will never fail you. Never, never, never.
Tengan la seguridad que jamás le fallaré, jamás, nunca jamás.
Back here in Washington, the White House is weighing its next steps. President Trump has summoned top national security officials to the Oval Office, and the White House has refused to disclose whether the final decision has in fact been made. White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt said the U.S. would not rule out the option of troops on Venezuelan soil, though some Republican lawmakers are now insisting that Washington has no intention of launching a ground invasion. Still, reports of President Trump warning that operations by land could begin soon have deepened unease in the region.
Broadcast any actions that may or may not be happening with respect to Venezuela. I know I've been very clear about the administration's position, as has the president and his national security team. You can expect to see those strikes continue.
Meanwhile, Maduro's diplomatic isolation continues to widen. Recent elections in Honduras and St. Vincent and the Grenadines unseated 2 of his ideological allies, signaling a broader regional shift away from Chavismo. Even left-leaning governments that once maintained warm relations, such as Brazil, Mexico, Chile, and Colombia, have kept their distance, especially after Maduro claimed victory in the disputed 2024 election, despite evidence pointing to opposition candidate Edmundo Gonzalez. With more than a dozen U.S. warships and 15,000 troops now deployed as part of Operation Southern Spear, the stakes continue to rise. Colombia's President Gustavo Petro has offered Cartagena as a neutral venue for talks, but for now, neither side appears ready to compromise. And with Washington silent on Maduro's request for a second call and U.S. forces tightening their ring around Venezuela, the next move may determine whether this crisis shifts towards diplomacy or something far more unpredictable.
They promised glory. They delivered fear. They shaped nations. They scarred generations. From brutal purges to propaganda machines, from stolen power to violent falls from the throne. Welcome to The Dictator, a series that strips away the myth, and then exposes the men behind the tyranny. History remembers their power